Thank you very much, Samuel. Good morning, dear friends. Welcome to Bratislava. Welcome to the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, and thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure for me to open this youth forum, and I want to start by stating the obvious. You are not here to listen to me or to people like me. Actually, we are here to listen to you. So I'll keep my comments brief and make 3 points. First, I want to simply say that excluding young people does not make any sense. More than half of the world's population is under 30 years of age. Yet the fact remains, young people have little power or influence. They are not at the center of our political and policy decision making. In fact, many times they are not even on the margins. Young people for decades have been calling for more of a say in the processes and decisions that directly affect their lives. And while we are finally waking up to this reality, we are still simply not doing enough. Young people are still not invited into the halls and rooms of power. Too often, they are not given a seat at the tables during negotiations. They are not being listened to in matters of policy. And like I said, this does not make sense, because it is young people who are driving the changes we all need. They are acting as watchdogs for human rights and fighting corruption. They are fighting niche ways to boost and expand our economies. They are speaking truth to power when it comes to the climate change. And they are out there in some of the most dangerous parts of the world, engaging in their communities to build peace, even when this puts them at risk. And we, the politicians, business leaders, opinion makers, need to start paying attention. I'm glad that more and more lately we are hearing about the values of youth participation. We are saying nice things in our speeches at the United Nations General Assembly. We are giving little pots of funding to youth-based initiatives. We are inviting more young speakers to sit on our panels. So these steps, baby steps, I would say, are the steps in the right direction. But one thing we need to remind ourselves of constantly is why we are doing this. Youth engagement, youth participation is not an act of charity. It is not a box to be ticked or a nice things to say at an event. It is smart, it is effective, and actually it is necessary. So it makes a lot of sense to take youth participation seriously, not as something we should do to look good, but as something we need to do to ensure our societies can cope with the tectonic changes we are facing. For my second point, I want to say this is true for the OSCE. The OSCE is the world's largest regional security organization. And when it comes to peace and security, our perception of the role of young people is changing. They used to be seen as part of the problem. This was narrow-minded and frankly dangerous, because the nuances, the realities and experiences of young women and men get lost. Now we know that young people play complex, varying roles along the peace and conflict chain. 600 million young people today are living in fragile or conflict-affected areas. They are not just perpetrators. They are victims or survivors. They are reaching out, trying to turn the tide of violent extremism. They are working on community-based reconciliation projects. And finally, we are realizing this and working to harness it. Thanks to advocacy from people like you, we now have 2 resolutions from the UN Security Council which acknowledge the positive and crucial role young people play in peace and security. And we are seeing encouraging progress at the OSCE. Last year's annual Ministerial Council resulted in the 3rd declaration on youth and security. We have now had 5 successive chairs to appoint special representatives on youth. And there is some really promising work happening on the ground. For example, in Moldova, the OSCE brings together young women and men from both banks of the Dniester River, and this allows the building of trust. Or in Bosnia and Herzegovina, a youth advisory group provides the mission with creative and innovative insight, which guides its work. As chairperson, my field trips from Central Asia to the Western Balkans have allowed me to engage with bright, sharp young people who have a clear vision for the future of their countries and their regions. So, the trend is positive, but there is still more, much more, to be done. Which brings me to my third point, that is actually a question. Where do we go from here? I know that a core group of experts has been working hard since February to answer this question. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the presentation today, which is key to the overall Perspectives 2030 project. And I know the discussion paper gives us some concrete guidance. It tells us education is a true catalyst for change, but that we need to look at how we can better adapt it to a changing world, from increasing access to diversifying in areas like digitalization and cybersecurity. It tells us that gender equality is not just about clever slogans and events, but tangible things, such as sufficient parental leave and concrete action plans to address gender-based violence. It tells us that peace can be built from inside and outside the room, meaning that we need to include the perspectives of young people and civil society across all mediation tracks. And it tells us, and this really caught my eye, that multilateralism is at risk, and that the only way to rebuild trust in institutions is to open them up, to better communicate what we are doing, and to include more voices than ever before. These are some of the lessons I'd like to see explored further, including at our Ministerial Council side event in December, which will unpack some of the messages from this forum. So, I think I've spoken too long already. In conclusion, I want to thank our other speakers, Secretary General Thomas Greminger and Monica Fröhler, the CIO of the Ban Ki-moon Center. And I want to thank sincerely all our young participants, and indeed our not-so-young participants as well, because this is not meant to be just an event for young people talk to other young people. If we are to move these issues forward, we need some intergenerational engagement. Finally, I want to reiterate that I'm really happy to be here, not just because this is a priority for our chairmanship, or because, honestly, it's very refreshing to be around this much creativity and innovation, but also because, as I have said, it makes sense. If we want to have a chance at combating the challenges on our horizon, these kinds of dialogues should be not the exception, but the norm. I hope that today we can put aside our usual jargon and speeches and be as creative and outside the box as possible. I thank you very much.